what he did for those 15 years, we don't have any facts. Outside of statements made allegedly by KPD and other people, we don't have anything to verify any of that information. Not one single thing to corroborate the statements made by that man in 2008 or 2009. Not only by Metro, but by the FBI, by LAPD, by the DEA, by the United States Attorney's Office. No one corroborates any of this. So, 2017 comes along, and an entity called the Center of Investigative Reporting, they file what's called a FOIA request with Metro. And what that means is, FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act. It allows or requires government agencies to give up information if you ask for it. That's the rule. It's to be transparent. And people wanted to know what was going on with the murder files. This is 2017. This is years after any of the statements that were made and anything else. Where's the investigation? What's going on? Well, Metro said, no, we're not going to give it to you. So in 2018, the Center turns around and files a lawsuit against Metro to force them to give them the file, to show them what work had you been doing over, at that particular point, I don't know, what's that, 20 years? That's when Detective Mogg enters the picture. What you will learn is that Detective Mogg basically says, I'm here just to close out the case. He's not here to solve the mystery of who killed Tupac. So with everything you have in front of you that you're now hearing for the first time in terms of the statements that were made in 2008, 1998, 1990, whatever, Detective Mogg comes along and says, I'm just here to close out the case. That's his role. And what you're going to learn is Detective Mogg received a copy of what's called the Death Row Chronicles in 2018. It's not a deposition. It's not testimony under oath. It's edited, and it's done for experiment purposes. He receives a copy of it. You know what happens when he receives that copy of the interviews that the state has basically shown you in this case? No charges filed. Why? So, Keefe writes a book, allegedly. Right? Allegedly, he writes this book called Compton Creek Legend in 2019. You know what happened with the book? Right? Even he confesses to it. What you find is, no charges filed. What is going on? District Attorney's Office doesn't want to charge the case. No charges filed when it happens. No charges are filed when the book is written. What is going on? 5 years goes by, and nothing is going on with the case. But Detective Mogg says he's closing it out. Detective Mogg turns around and applies for what's called a search warrant. Now, what a search warrant is that in July of 2023, around that time period, a search warrant requires a police officer to get permission from a judge to basically violate the sanctity and privacy of your home. Right? There's got to be legal reasons for it. He's got to go through that process, and he's got to ask permission from a judge in order for him to get that. And what he does in that search warrant application is he assures the judge, hey, what we are looking for is in the home. The thing that's going to help us solve this crime, who killed Tupac, is in the home. And he signs an affidavit, and that's important. I want you to remember this. He signs an affidavit attesting to what he's saying to this judge to be true and correct. What he says is, I think we have evidence in Keefe B's home that will solve the murder of Tupac. So up until this point, they've got all these statements, they can't be corroborated. So now they're saying, we have evidence in this home that we think probably is in the home. And as a result, we're going to find this evidence. It's going to help us solve this case. What I'm going to tell you right now is they don't find it. And in the meantime, Detective Mogg retires. He now becomes Mr. Mogg. And Mr. Mogg goes to the grand jury. And in the grand jury, it's a secret proceeding. We're not there. The defense, isn't sitting like we are here. It's just the prosecutors. There's a panel of people called the grand jurors, and you have people come up and they testify under oath. And there's really no way for the defense to challenge any of it because it's done in secret. We don't really know about it. But in this particular case, Mr. Mogg is sworn to testify truthfully. And you know what Mr. Mogg does? He just reads pages of the book into the record. He doesn't do any more in terms of an investigation than read pages of a book into the record. He never documents in any of his efforts any verification of the book before he reads it into the record. He walks up, gets on the stand, and reads the book as if it's the gospel truth. And that's what he does. He treats that book like it's fact. Now, what you're going to find out about Mr. Mogg is that he never wrote a report. So when he took over the case in 2017, all the way up until when he retired in 2023 and was in front of the grand jury, he never wrote a report. Not one time. Not like Detective Becker, and not like Detective Long, and not like any other police officer who does their job. This man never writes a report. In fact, what happens is he transitions, right? He's a Metro detective, he retires, and then he gets a job working as an independent contractor for the district attorney's office as an investigator. And as an investigator, he doesn't have any police power. He continues to work as a lead detective on this case. Even though the procedure is you hand your file and your officer's report to the next detective in line. That's how this works. But he keeps the file for himself and he starts billing against the file after he retires as a detective in Metro. Because now he's an independent contractor. That's important to know. Why is that important? Because what the evidence is going to show you is that he backloaded his work. And when he finally writes a report, it's not an officer's report, it's an investigative report that spans from 2018 to current, and we just received it about 5 weeks ago. The importance of capturing everything you do, the accuracy that you would need to be able to be in court on a murder case, not some type of college paper that you forgot to do and then the last second just put something together and, get it out the door. Mr. Mogg does not do any of that. That's going to be important later for you to consider. Because according to that report that he submitted 5 weeks ago or so, he never verified the book. According to that report, he never investigated any of the alternate theories that were out there, and you're going to hear about those alternate theories. There are people who have developed over time answers to the question, did this and why? He never looked into any of it. Which I think, at the end of the day, don't you want to see what's out there to help you with your investigation? And according to his work, his report, he did more on the case after he became an investigator than he did before when he was a detective. What I'm going to tell you right now is what you're going to find when you listen to all the evidence, that his work was biased, sloppy, and incomplete. Those are the three things you're going to determine for Mr. Mogg. Now, because of the fact that in terms of the evidence itself, he doesn't have much, the state's going to lean pretty heavily on their witnesses. And I'm going to give you a sampling of the type of people you're going to run across in this trial based upon their witness list in this case. First person is this guy named Reggie Wright Jr. He's remember, the security company for Death Row Records. And what he is a felon. Second of all, you're also certified that he's a former Compton police officer. He worked for Compton PD for about 5 years, and apparently he got disabled. At some point, he becomes a felon. You're going to learn about that. And his father, like I said before earlier, Reggie Wright Sr. was the head of the Compton PD gang unit. What you're also going to learn about Reggie is that, once again, he was supposed to be protecting Suge Knight. Where was he the night of the shooting? In addition to that, he orders his security team to not carry firearms the night of the shooting, before the shooting took place. What you're also going to learn is, he wasn't even around when the shooting occurred. So the principal, meaning the person he should have been protecting the most, would have been Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records. This man was nowhere to be found. He was sitting at a club called 662 down the street, waiting for Suge to show up, while he left his people that were working for him unarmed in the vehicles behind Suge Knight. And when push comes to shove, he orders his people to lie to the police during their investigation. That's going to be called by them. That guy's going to be called by them. In addition to that, when everything was said and done, Suge Knight went into prison because he was not supposed to be in a fight in Las Vegas. He violates his release. Guess who takes over Death Row Records? Reggie Wright Jr. Now, the state is also going to bring in other people with unreliable positions, including criminal histories, financial motivations, and inconsistent statements. That are the people and the quality of the evidence that you're going to listen to in this case. Just to give you another example, there's going to be an individual by the name of Devonta Dirt Rockley. Who is he? He's been a paid informant for years. You're going to hear that they have paid him to be an informant. He will, of course, say whatever he needs to say to avoid his own criminal actions, but his testimony will be inconsistent. And that's what you have to really rely on, is what exactly is he going to say, and can you even believe it? In addition to that, you're also going to learn about a disgraced LAPD detective by the name of Greg Kading. The state told you about him. He wrote a book. He benefited off of what was happening with regards to Keefe. Now, Greg Kading, he stole the file. What you're going to learn is he actually stole the file. He took the Tupac and the Biggie case files and walked out the door. This is an LAPD detective that they are using, or one of the people that they're going to be focusing on to establish their case. He writes the book, and then he holds himself out as the person who solves the murder. That's Greg Kading. That's the LAPD detective. Now, what you're also going to learn is Greg Kading, when he was a detective with LAPD, was basically caught manipulating witnesses. And because he was caught manipulating witnesses, it led to cases being overturned as a result. There was a court finding on this issue. A judge determined that. And there we go. That's Greg Kading. That's a witness in this case from that. Now, your challenges, right? I mean, gosh, we're sitting here, there's cameras in the room. I mean, there's things going on. But it's really time. Like, how do you, as jurors, try to figure out time on this case? There's been so much time. Delays. By who, though? And there's corruption. How do you look at your information that you're receiving with anything more than just like skepticism? Like, you're going to look at this stuff and be like, well, I mean, you have a motive to lie. You have a motive to tell or deceive. And it's because at the end of the day, there's not actual facts. When you get past all the talk and me talking, just look at the actual facts. What facts do you have to support any of what KPD said on any of his interviews or in the book? When you look at this relevant timeline again, and you see the length of time, ask yourself, what facts do they have to even put KPD in a car in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996? What facts? When you look at the video that happened at the MGM, look for them. Try to find them in there. Try to find any of the other individuals. Remember, he said there's 3 individuals in the car with him and Orlando Anderson. Orlando's in the video because he's getting beat up. Find any of those other individuals on the videos of the MGM. Look for evidence that shows that KPD was even in Las Vegas on the night of the fight. Receipts, credit cards, a picture of him standing next to somebody else, maybe watching the fight from another casino. Something. Give me something. In the book, you're going to learn that Keefe says that he was at the fight. He was sitting on the second row. He was sitting with all the celebrities, and he was dressed in his finest gear. There's not one iota of proof that he was ever at that fight. But you know who does show an iota of proof that he was at the fight? Suge Knight. Suge Knight was raided, and at some point, there is a ticket stub to that fight, the Tyson versus Selden fight with Suge Knight's possession. Because he went to the fight. And you would think, a fight like this, you want to show everyone that you were at the fight. There's no evidence at all that man was even at the fight. When we look at fact versus fiction, really at the end of the day, what you're going to hear from witnesses that will testify to this is that Keefe D was known to do this. That's the testimony you're going to hear in this case. That's what you're going to hear about that man right there. And so you have to ask yourself the question, if I just say things, is that going to end up being one of those things where I'm going to be hemmed up for a murder if I just keep repeating the fiction? I keep repeating that? The answer is no. You have to corroborate everything I say in order for it to be true. Otherwise, it's just that, or fiction. And at the end of all of the time we spend together, what you're going to find is that the state cannot prove to you beyond reasonable doubt the claim that Keefe had anything to do with a first-degree murder with use of deadly weapon. There's no facts to that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandford. State, at this time, are you prepared to proceed with your case in chief, or did you need a brief break?
Just need a break to bring the evidence in, so maybe give the jury a few minutes.
Sure, we can do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are going to take a 15-minute break. During this recess, you are admonished not to talk or converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected to the trial, or read, watch, or listen to any report or commentary on a trial of any person connected with this case by any medium of information, including without limitation, newspaper, television, internet, and radio, or form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case is finally submitted to you. We'll have you guys back here at 11 a.m. Please rise for the jury. For the record, the jury has exited the room. Is there anything we need to address outside the presence?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you guys are just going to work on marking those exhibits so it goes a little smoother?
I was going to bring the box in. We've already given our list and marked, and then I just need to grab the exhibits for the witnesses today.
Sounds good. All right. And then we'll give you about an hour, or when we return about an hour and 15 before we have the break.
You do solemnly you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
You may be seated. May I please have you state and spell your first and last name for the record?
James McDonald, JAMES-MCDONALD.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Paul, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. McDonald, it's fair to say that you're here because of a court order. Is that right?
Correct.
That you didn't volunteer to come or anything like that?
Not at all.
Okay. But you were instructed by a court that you had to attend.
Yes.
I want to ask you about September 7th, 1996. Were you at Club 662?
Yes.
What was Club 662?
It was a club that Suge bought, and we operated it. When he opened, I was head of security through the neighborhood. Just a place to go and hang out.
Did the number 662 mean anything?
Well, to the new guys, that was part of our neighborhood, 662,
Okay.
MOB.
Okay, MOB. And when you say MOB, there used to be, before Apple iPhones and those types of things. When you had to have landlines and you pressed numbers,
662, yeah.
662, there would be letters under those numbers, and M and O would be under 6. Is that right?
Right.
And B would be under 2.
Yes,
So 662 would be MOB.
yes.
Okay. When you talk about Suge, are you talking about Suge Knight?
Yes, sir.
How did you know Suge?
He lived in my neighborhood.
And is that in Compton?
Yes.
When you were at Club 662, you said you were head of security.
Yes.
Was somebody by the name of Reggie Wright Jr. there with you?
Not at that time.
No?
No.
When was he with you?
I got out of prison in 1988. Suge came and got me in 1988. Like 4 days from coming home. Started another company, Fernhill Records. Then Death Row Records came. Soon as Death Row was launched, Reggie came a few months after that.
Okay, so we're talking about the start of Death Row Records. Reggie wasn't part of Death Row Records initially, but you were.
Yes.
And then Suge Knight, was he the boss of Death Row Records?
Yes.
Okay. Was Suge from the same neighborhood?
From the mob,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Suge was. He was guilty by association.
Okay.
He wasn't from the neighborhood. He lived in the neighborhood. We looked at him as somebody from the neighborhood. When he started Death Row and started to recruit us, then yes, he's from the hood.
So I guess there's a difference between living on a certain street versus being from the hood.
Yeah.
And how would you describe that difference?
I look at it, you have three different type of friends in the neighborhood. You got gang members, you got gang bangers, and you got men that just guilty by association from living in that area.
And can you tell me what the difference between a gang member and a gang banger is?
A gang member hangs out. A gang banger handles his business, put in work, do what the gang do.
And what was your role with Death Row?
I was the guy that if something happened, Suge would have you take care of that. Like Snoop Dogg trial, there was issues up there. I was sent up there to make sure those problems didn't happen again.
And are those problems, and I'm not asking you to get into specifics, but are those problems meaning issues with other people who might be gangbanging or might be trying to threaten folks, that type of thing?
Correct. Yes.
And you are somebody that Suge relied on to be able to protect his roster of music artists and other things like that.
Correct.
And after you were asked to help out with Snoop, did Snoop have any other problems?
No, we didn't have one issue at court.
Now, I'm going to ask you, fast forward a little bit, to, were you familiar with the Southside Compton Crips?
Yes.
Would you say they were somebody you were in alliance with or a rivalry with?
Right.
Okay. And would sometimes that rivalry get violent?
Anytime you're dealing with the gang life is going to be violent at any given time.
Are you familiar with somebody by the name of Tupac Shakur?
Yes.
How are you familiar with Tupac?
He was assigned to Death Row.
And when he was signed with Death Row, would he also hang out with you guys?
He hung with my brother now. Yeah. Not me.
Who is your brother?
Alton McDonald, Buntry Ave.
He went by Buntry?
Yeah.
Now, during this time, is it fair to say that Mr. Shakur had an issue with rappers from the East Coast?
I think Tupac inherited the beef between Suge Knight and Puffy.
Okay, that was your perspective of it.
That's all it was. And we all fell, some of us fell victim to it because we allowed ourselves to be a part of the BS, should I say. And that was a situation between record companies, not gangs. So technically it wasn't our business. But when you had 20 men just fresh out of prison and didn't have a way of getting the things they wanted, getting a paycheck from Suge, we did almost anything and everything to get that paycheck.
Now, was there another gang that was associated with Bad Boy Records, the East Coast record company that Puffy had?
The only one I know of is Southside.
And did that escalate the tension between Mob Piru and Southside?
At the time, there was no at war, it was peace. And when the two record companies got into it, Bad Boy went to Keepy D and Suge came to us. So that intertwined everything, and we had issues.
Do you recall any instances that you were at where there were those issues manifested itself in terms of violence?
Are you serious?
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Ace 40, a complete AI creation platform.
Don't ask me that right here. I can't say that on both sides. When each neighborhood met each other, there was a lot of tension. I'd say that.
Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about September 7th, 1990. Were you in Las Vegas on September 7th of 1996?
Yes.
Why were you in Las Vegas?
To run the security at 662, we were having issues with individuals that said that they were coming for whatever reason they was coming for and to come to 662. My job was to not let that happen.
Similar to the kind of security you were asked to apply in the whole Snoop Dogg situation.
It didn't have nothing to do with Snoop Dogg. It was, everybody came, well, Suge and Buntry and them, his entourage, everybody went for the fight. My job and all of my people were there to make sure nothing funny happened at 662. So we were the fall guys. So if something happened, we was the one that's going to go to jail for it. Prepared to do that. So nobody else was going to come up there and disrupt it in that manner. But if anybody remember that night, there was so many Metro and everybody there. No, neither side could have did anything. So it was calm, it was peaceful.
So when you say there's so much Metro there, you're talking about so much Metro at Club 662?
It was police all over the place.
Now you said you were there to be on the lookout for something. What were you?
You said I was on the lookout for nothing.
I apologize. You were there. You were there in order to ensure there weren't any problems. Is that fair?
To make sure everything was good.
And because you had heard there might be some issues.
Right.
And what were the issues that you were concerned about?
Individuals coming up there, creating we was having with different sides of from with Crips, period.
Yeah. So you were worried about Crips. Not worried. I'm sorry. You were there providing security to ensure that Crips did not initiate any violence at Club 662.
Not just Crips, that nothing would happen.
Okay.
Period.
Okay. And then when you were there, was Reggie Wright Jr. with you that night at September 7th, 1996 at Club 662?
Yes.
What was Reggie doing there?
Reggie's job was to watch me and make sure I don't get in trouble. Everybody knew how I was. So Reggie Everybody else went to the fights. Reggie was there to watch me with the people that was there.
And I'm guessing that you were not the only person there making sure there wasn't any problems at Club 616.
I'm positive it was 30, 45 rules there.
And again, that was to make sure that there wasn't any violence that occurred at Club 616.
Right.
When at some point that night, do you learn that Tupac or Suge had been shot?
That night, yes.
Can you tell me how you learned about that?
Well, people was coming back and was explaining that Tupac and Suge just got shot. Everybody was in a uproar. A lot of people started leaving, trying to get over there on Cobalt. We couldn't leave because we didn't pay to do this here. It wasn't too long after people started coming back, like Haron came back and went to the hospital. The majority of the people was leaving and then coming back because that night they said Tupac was going to be all right. And even Suge came back with a little bandage on his head. And we thought everything was good. People kept partying.
So, and when Suge came back, you said he had a bandage on his head, but
Yeah, the dude said he got shot, but he was grazed, a little scar, but nothing penetrated.
some people would describe being shot in the head even
Well,
slightly.
you described it as that, I mean,
Yeah.
you're wrong.
All right. So when you find out, well, let me ask you this: was Reggie with you when you found out that Tupac and Suge were shot?
Yes.
And did it appear to you in any way that Reggie Wright Jr. was coordinating the murder of Tupac Shakur?
Impossible.
I mean, and I say this because you're aware that there have been some conspiracy theories that Reggie Wright Jr. is responsible for the murder of Tupac.
And it's so not true. His father was implicated, and his father had something to do with it. Reggie Wright used to be a police officer. And here again, I've been knowing Reggie Wright over 50 years. His daddy, as a police officer, patrolling my neighborhood. He done took me to jail many times when I messed up. If Reggie killed Tupac, then death row is over with. Tupac was the money source. Tupac was that guy at death row. So Reggie would have had a problem if he would have did that. And Suge, I truly believe Suge would have opened his mouth if Reggie betrayed him like that. So people say what they want to say.
After that night, do you stick around in Las Vegas or do you go back to Compton?
Well, I stayed in Vegas and we left that morning because we knew we was going to have neighborhood issues, and everybody left and went back to Compton.
Why were you thinking you might have neighborhood issues?
Well, you asking me some.
The most relaxing game for left-brained thinkers.
What if there was a game, no pay to win, no ads interrupting you, and no mandatory tasks forcing you to log in every day? Wouldn't that be something?
The issues that we was having was heated, and Compton was on fire at the time, and things were happening. And me personally, staying in Vegas wasn't worth it. That man in the hospital, it's time to go and protect your home front and be prepared for whatever happened there. You know what I'm saying? Like the other side was being prepared and was prepared to do things because Orlando got beat up in there. And that's something you don't tolerate. So you was going to get some repercussion from that and everything else that was going on. So living this life, you got to be ready. If you're not, you might as well just lay down.
Now, you weren't there for the beating of Orlando Anderson at the MGM, were you?
No, I was.
Yeah, like we talked earlier, you were at 662.
Yeah.
But are you aware of why Orlando was targeted?
I'm aware of a lot of things. Things that was going on. People ain't talked about it in 30 years. Today ain't one of them. I don't mean to be funny, but here's the thing. A lot of things happened that night. A lot of things happened weeks and weeks after that night. Me or anybody else bringing up the dead is wrong. A lot of people got hurt behind this situation in itself. Living the life in how we lived in Compton is one thing. You bring back all of the guys that made it, like me, I'm 61 years old now, to rehash and relive this situation again. I told every attorney in here that tried to get me to come here, you better treat me as a hostile witness. And I think that's where I'm about to go now, because you're asking me questions. I can't answer those questions.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Then I'm not going to speak on Orlando. Let me ask you something about yourself. There was a rumor that Tupac had knocked you out one time.
I'd have killed him.
That would have been your response if that happened.
Yeah, I'm being honest with you and everybody else. I said it on my podcast show. Him, Suge, and my brother. I'd have shot all three of them if he touched me. That's how I was living.
Why is that?
That's what I was back then.
And so, is it fair to say that your reputation and your standing in the neighborhood would require you to do something if you're going to get punked by somebody like Tupac?
You don't have a choice, or you can't be there.
I'm sorry. We're doing some side talking. No, that's my fault. I asked, being in the life that you were, if somebody like Tupac is punking you, like by punching you in the face or something like that, you would have to retaliate, or you would lose your place in the neighborhood.
You would have to go back home and fight everybody that called you a punk. You would have to go. There's some rules that you roll with, and some rules you just got to handle. Certain things need to be dealt with, adjusted, living that life. And when I was living that life, it wasn't no ifs, ands, or buts. It wasn't no, oh, you get a pass. No, I would have shot him, to be honest.
So then you had mentioned, I'm not going to ask you to go into any specifics, but you had mentioned that after what happened here in Las Vegas, there were issues between the neighborhoods. How long did that last for? Was it like, all right, one day we're good, everything's done, or did it last for longer than that?
No, it was tension in the air for quite a long time, until I guess both sides, and he might agree, just said that because it really wasn't our beef. This was between Suge Knight and Keepy D, and people put themselves in situations like myself. I'm guilty as everybody else. Like myself, I put myself in the situation to protect something and somebody that didn't have nothing to do with me. I did it for a paycheck. I did it on some just because. I'm older now. I get it. But we did things for all the wrong reasons at that time, in them days.
Court's indulgence.
There are over 60 causes of intimate itch. Vagisil Maximum Strength Cream
doing security. Worked at nightclub, the Raiders Club, that was inside of the Compton Hotel. Worked several video shoots. Just extra money on the side for off duty.
Compton PD wasn't paying good?
Guess I was really young and greedy.
Yeah. And then at some point you said one of the jobs that you had was moonlighting for Death Row. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us what Death Row is?
Death Row Records is a record company that was based out of Beverly Hills, California. And, yeah.
And who ran Death Row Records at that time?
A gentleman that I actually grew up with at elementary school, junior high, and high school by the name of Marion Suge Knight.
And when you say Suge, is that what he would go by?
I call him Suge.
So after you retired, did you, well actually let me take a step back. As part of your role as a police officer in Compton, were you familiar with the different neighborhoods and the members of different neighborhoods?
Yes, sir.
Was that part of your job to know what areas were associated with what gangs?
Pretty much a job, and like I said, I started in like 1985, so kind of got familiar while I was working in jail, and it was something that was curious to me, you know, being that my father was active with the gangs, and it was something that was intriguing to me as well.
So when you said you grew up with Suge, did you grow up in the same neighborhood that Suge grew up in?
Yes, about 2 blocks away.
Was that considered Mob Piru territory?
That's correct, sir.
Were you so when you were growing up, were you familiar with the Mob Piru?
They came on eventually later. It was really a Looters Park, Piru area. But then, I guess when I was about in the 7th grade, which would have been like 1978, maybe a little later, 80, they started calling themselves the Mob Piru.
So they were Looters Park, Piru before, and then they transitioned to being called Mob Piru.
Yeah, we pretty much divided it, everything south of Rosecrans was mob, and everything north was, or the other way around. North was mob, and south were Looters area of Rosecrans Avenue.
Were you familiar with a gang called the Southside Compton Crips?
Yes, sir.
How were you familiar with the Southside Compton Crips?
Well, growing up in the city of Compton, we all played sports together, and heard of them when I was playing at Kelly Park, baseball, Little League baseball, at Compton Northern. And then my time in '85 as a jailer, and then working in the streets of Compton as a police officer from 1989.
Were you familiar with somebody by name that went by the moniker Keefy D?
Well, heard of him. Had no personal interactions with him at that point, especially in law enforcement. Heard of him, knew of him, but I had no personal contact with Keefy at that time.
So he was somebody that was on your radar, even though you had never met him or any had personal interaction with him.
Heard of him. He was mainly known as well, at one point he was known as a crackhead, but then later on he was known as a drug dealer. And I mainly was a gang guy, and didn't really enforce on the level of narcotics he was working.
All right, so then you had mentioned that after you had left the Compton PD, you formed a company. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, sir. So, in '94, initially I was using a private security company because I was kind of in charge for security for Death Row, called Code 4. But once I saw I was about to get retired, I opened up my own private company called Right Way Protective Services, and that didn't really get started until about 1995. But in '94, I was using another private company.
And who were your clients? Was your client just Death Row, or did you do anything else?
I had a couple of clients, like Honda of Pasadena, which was a automotive dealership, a dealership in Compton that they were repoing people's cars and they needed a car. But my biggest, 95% of my clientele was Death Row Records.
Now, tell me about that. What were you doing when you're saying you're security or you're a security company that's working for Death Row Records or getting contracted by Death Row Records? What does that mean, actually?
It grew over a time period. In '94, it was just mainly this special events. And then I have a couple of off-duty or retired police officers hanging with the artists in '94. '95, '96, it got a little bigger. Had security at the office, at the recording studios, driving Mr. Knight around, two with Mr. Shakur, two with Snoop Dogg, Mr. Brodus, and other artists when they were emotional events like that. So I could pretty much have about 10 officers working a day.
And when you say 10 officers, were the people that you would contract with or work for you in this world, were they largely off-duty police officers?
Off-duty or reserves or retired.
And why is that?
Because they were able to carry guns concealed, where it's not exposed. We had exposed officers at the studio, but mainly the bodyguards were carried their weapons concealed.
And we heard...
And for the training as well.
We heard from James McDonald just before you hit the stand. Was it fair to say that there were Mob Piru gang members also around Death Row Records?
That's correct. Mob, Looters, Westside, generally Pirus from the city of Compton.
And are these gangs that are generally associated with the Bloods? Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And the Crips are, they're... Well, let me ask you, Crips and Bloods, are they an alliance or are they typically in conflict?
Typically in conflict. However, Death Row was a unique situation because one of their main artists, prior to Mr. Shakur coming to the label, was Snoop Dogg, who was a known Crip from Long Beach. And they all seemed to have a great working relationship prior to my arrival and even during my arrival.
All right. I want to ask you about Bad Boy Records. Are you familiar with a company called Bad Boy Records?
Yes, I am.
And who, to your knowledge, was running Bad Boy Records in the mid-'90s?
P. Diddy, Sean Combs, Puffy. I don't know what name he's going by today.
All right. So we'll go with Mr. Combs for now.
Okay.
So Mr. Combs was running Bad Boy Record, and then who would you say his most prominent artist at that time was?
Christopher Wallace, Biggie Small.
Okay. And then was there tension between Death Row Records and Bad Boy, the Bad Boy Entertainment label?
At what time period?
Well, you tell me. At any point, did tension develop between Bad Boy Records and Death Row Records?
Initially, when I was around in '94, there wasn't. However, some things happened in '95 that started tension between Death Row and Bad Boys.
There's a famous speech that Mr. Knight gives at the Source Awards in New York in 1995. Does that contribute to it?
Yes, sir. That was August the 6th, 1995. But yes, sir. That was when he let the world know.
And then there's another incident where one of Suge's associates was killed in Atlanta. Is that right?
That was in September 25th, I believe. Yes, sir.
And then, is it fair to say that your perception of as security for Death Row Records was that somebody associated with Bad Boy Entertainment may have had something to do with the murder of one of Suge's friends in Atlanta?
That was always the story that was told to us. Yes, sir.
And so, is it fair to say by 1995, the end of 1995, that there was significant tension between Bad Boy and Death Row?
Yes, sir.
And to the extent that it even involved violence with regards to Suge Knight's friend being killed.
Correct. That was the first time something escalated to that point. Yes, sir.
As security for Death Row, how did you handle this?
Well, we was always on some type of attention when it came to Bad Boys or going to the East Coast, which Suge and I continuously went to the East Coast because he had a lot of business. His distributor, the main distributor, was located out there. The big trade, like the magazines and stuff, was out there. So I can honestly say he and I, and maybe a few of his homeboys, went out there at least once a week, once a month, I'm sorry, during that time. When Mr. Shakur came home, we went down a little bit, but we were still going out there, but we didn't go as much.
And when you say when Mr. Shakur came home, at some point did Death Row sign Mr. Shakur to its record label?
It's debated how that happened, but
I'm not asking about the how. I'm just saying, did it happen?
Yes, sir. I believe he came home October the 12th of 1995.
Now, as security for Death Row, were you aware that Mr. Shakur was actually out on a bond, an appeals bond from prison from New York?
Yes, sir.
And I believe the allegation has something to do with sexual misconduct. Is that right?
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know,
I mean, something like that. I wouldn't call it that, but yes.
Okay, whatever it was, there's some kind of issue. Mr. Shakur is in prison in New York, and then Death Row Records posts an appellate bond for Mr. Shakur.
They have some other companies, but yes, sir.
Okay. And then Mr. Shakur does he move to where Death Row is, or does he stay in the New York area, or where does he go?
No, I remember, I picked him up from the airport, me and one of my security guys named Kevin Hackey, and we took him immediately, we went to Monty's restaurant and ate, then we went to the studio, the recording studio that night, and from that, we got him into a room, took him to a hotel, we stayed for, I believe, a month or two, then he got a spot on Wilshire, and later on a house in Calabasas.
As the head of Right Way Security, which was contracted by Death Row Records, were you responsible for Tupac Shakur's security?
Yes, sir.
How did you handle Tupac Shakur's security?
Well, I had two guys that were primarily always assigned to him. One guy was a guy by the name of Kevin Hackey, who was with him a lot at the beginning. Later on, towards the end, a gentleman by the name of Frank Alexander was the one that worked with him as well. And then I will always have additional guys, like Al Giddings, as one of them fill in for him when those guys wasn't available. But generally always had one security guard with him. After this particular song came out, in about May or June, we upped it to 2 security officers.
Now, you mentioned a particular song came out that changed how you handled Tupac Shakur's security. What song are you talking about?
It was a song called Hit 'Em Up.
And is it fair to say that in that song, Tupac is aggressively expressing his dislike for the members of Bad Boy Entertainment as well as other artists?
That's fair to say.
And as a result of that, you decided to change the security for Tupac or increase it?
Well, I was a part of the discussion and ultimately had to approve it, but I'm sure Mr. Knight, and possibly Mr. Shakur, and maybe the security officer that was primarily with them, we all agreed that he probably needed.
Were you aware during this time of a gang